Hi, I'm Dr. Antonio Graceffo, and welcome to this episode of China Economic Research, coming to you from Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. Today's topic, China gathering data on U.S. citizens. Before we begin, let me first read you Article 7 of China's National Intelligence Law, which is closely related to China's national security law. And it says, any organization or citizen shall support and assist and cooperate with the state intelligence work in accordance with the law, adding that the state protects any individual and organization that aids it. This basically means that every Chinese company and every Chinese citizen is obliged to spy for the Communist Party of China. China is building a database on vulnerabilities of hundreds of millions of Americans. They're doing this through hacking, through selling cloud storage services, and through the National Intelligence Law, which obliges companies to allow the government to read their files, databases, and records. This includes both employee data and customer data. If you are now or have worked in China, your data has definitely been entered into a Chinese database and shared with the government. But even if you do business with an American company in America, it is possible that they store data in China or use Chinese services or hardware to process payments, in which case China has your data. Senator Josh Hawley explained that the national security law and national intelligence law grant the Chinese government lawful and technical access to all digital data within its borders and possibly even large volumes of data beyond its borders. According to Kara Frederick, fellow at the Center for New American Security, this year, 2020, China's new security plan will be fully implemented as part of the foreign investment law and will now be expanded to include foreign companies, so even foreign companies will be obliged to hand over all data to the Communist Party. So each year, China updates their foreign investment law, and this is the law that regulates American and foreign companies investing in China, forming joint ventures, how they can operate, and so on. By monitoring this law, we have an idea of what the investment climate, business climate is in China. This year, 2020, the foreign investment law incorporates the national security and national intelligence law, which now obliges, it now holds foreign companies to the same standards that it did Chinese companies before, which is that even foreign companies are obliged to hand over data to the Communist Party. The national intelligence law requires citizens and companies to inform on people posting anti-government sentiment on social media. As the law will now be expanded to cover foreign companies, this may mean that even foreign employers would be required to censor their employees' social media posts. Additionally, since all data would now be available to the government, this could extend to the contents of private chats, private emails, even phone calls could be considered data that has to be handed over to, or that access has to be given to the organs of the Communist Party of China. And the sorts of comments the government would want to know about would not be limited to revolutionary thoughts and conversations, but also any mention of Tibet, Taiwan, or Tiananmen Square, the three T's, which are regularly removed from social media platforms. Other forbidden topics would include Xinjiang detention camps and the Hong Kong protests. And we saw what happened to Daryl Morey, the general manager of the Houston Rockets basketball team last year. He tweeted in support of the Hong Kong protest, and immediately the Rockets lost millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in TV deals and advertising deals in China. Under the expanded security laws, which are now part of the foreign investment law, a foreign company would then be responsible for censoring their employees' behavior. And that includes social media posts, phone calls even, text messages, WeChat messages, chatting with a friend. Senator Josh Hawley is one of the American congressmen who is concerned about our China vulnerability. In November 2019, he warned the state subcommittee on crime and terrorism about the dangers of Chinese social media platform TikTok. TikTok is owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance, which claimed that they were storing data in the US, but the Chinese national security law would apply to all Chinese companies, even those working abroad. This means that any data stored by any Chinese company anywhere in the world could be at risk of being divulged to the intelligence services of the Communist Party of China. The Peterson Institute for International Economics advised the U.S. government that TikTok posed a major threat to national security because it had the ability to collect information on location, image, and biometrics, all of which would be made available to ByteDance, and ByteDance would be obligated to hand that over to the Chinese government. CEO Jiang Yiming, the founder of ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, issued a letter in 2018 in which he stated that ByteDance would further deepen cooperation with the Communist Party of China authorities to promote their policies. When Senator Mark Rubio and other U.S. lawmakers declared TikTok a threat to national security, the company reiterated that cloud storage of U.S. citizen data was done outside of China. The company's privacy policy, however, stated that it reserved the right to share data with Chinese authorities. In October 2019, Senator Mark Rubio asked the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States to open investigation into TikTok and ByteDance. At the same time, Senator Josh Hawley introduced the National Security and Personal Data Protection Act to Congress. The other Chinese company that has been at the center of a great deal of national security and cyber espionage debates worldwide was 5G maker Huawei. Under concerns of cybersecurity and surveillance and the company's close tie to the Chinese government, the U.S. government has asked its allies to stop using products made by Huawei or fellow Chinese telecommunications company ZTE. The company's founder, Huawei's founder, Ren Zhengfei, was a People's Liberation Army information technology and communications engineer. One of the reasons why the U.S. is so suspicious of Huawei is that they have lied about their true ownership. The company claims to be employee-owned because employees are given shares when they join the company, but these shares are called virtual restricted shares and are neither portable nor transferable. It means that when employees are working there, they're not allowed to sell the shares, and when they leave, they can't take the shares with them. So at the end of the day, these shares are basically just like a profit-sharing arrangement. The actual shares, the real shares of Huawei, 1% are owned by the founder, Ren Zhengfei, while the remaining 99% of shares are owned by a trade union committee. And a trade union committee is not the same as a trade union. And the officers' organizational chart and how this organ functions are all a mystery. The trade union committee is, however, a dues-paying member of the All China Federation of Trade Unions, which is effectively controlled by the Communist Party of China. For these reasons, it would seem that Huawei is actually state-owned, but trying to disguise itself as a private company. Either way, it does not matter, because under the national intelligence law and the national security law, Huawei would be obligated to help the Chinese government conduct surveillance overseas. At various times, Huawei has been accused of intellectual property theft against numerous companies, including Nortel, Cisco, and T-Mobile US. In one case, a Huawei employee secretly took photos of a robotic arm made by a U.S. company, and in another, a Huawei employee stole a robotic finger from a U.S. lab. In a number of cases, the Chinese government, through its embassies, has threatened countries that were considering not using Huawei. China ambassador to Denmark threatened to cancel a trade agreement if they did not allow the Huawei 5G network in the Faroe Islands. A few days later, the Chinese ambassador similarly threatened Germany, saying that it would block the sale of German cars in China, saying they would claim German cars were unsafe if Germany did not agree to use Huawei. In January, the Chinese ambassador threatened Canada with retaliation if they blocked Huawei 5G. The fact that the Chinese government would step in, violating international political protocols to support a particular company, suggests that Huawei is state-owned. In addition to state-level data hacking and the national security law, Chinese systems are believed to have backdoors and security flaws which give them access to data of third-party systems as well. So you may be doing business with a U.S. company based in the U.S. who provides a service to or buys a service from a Chinese company, and through a backdoor, the Chinese government can get your data. There's even something called a bug door, and this is a backdoor which is introduced to the system later through a software update. So when you get these messages and it says click here to update your system, there may be a bug door mixed in with that update, and you wind up installing it accidentally into your system.